$150 million Russian bomber base destroyed as Ukraine's cheap drone swarm breaks all defenses. Today, Ukraine delivers a precision strike that exposes a deep weakness inside Russia's strategic aviation network, inflicting about $150 million in combined losses while using only a few $100,000 worth of equipment. A swarm of low-cost drones outmaneuvers radar, forces hypersonic missiles to waste million-dollar shots, and overwhelms defenses built for a different era of warfare. What follows is not just the loss of aircraft and infrastructure, but the breakdown of a protection system that believed distance and layers meant safety. To understand how fewer than 20 drones forced that system to fail, the story must return to the very first movements over the water. At 4:58 a.m., the Sea of Azov lies quiet under a sharp wind chill. Low fog drifts over the surface, cutting visibility to around a kilometre. From an unlit section of shoreline, 18 Ukrainian FPV drones lift off almost together. Each airframe weighs a little more than 5 pounds, yet as a group, they carry more explosive power than a full artillery battery firing at once. A strong crosswind pushes against their frames, battery drain rises quickly, and instead of climbing, the swarm drops down toward the water. The drones level out just 9 to 10 meters above the waves. At this altitude, they disappear into the natural radar shadow formed by Earth's curvature. Long-range search radars that can see aircraft hundreds of kilometers away lose them entirely. Only short-range thermal sensors and point defenses remain a danger. The swarm now advances not as a conventional air target, but as a thin line of low, slow machines moving inside the blind zone of systems designed to track jets and cruise missiles. At 4:59 a.m., the first Russian Pantsir S one-gun missile system reacts. Its twin cannons spin up and begin firing at nearly 4,000 rounds per minute. Tracer fire tears through the fog in bright arcs, but the conditions are unstable. One Ukrainian drone is struck not by a direct hit, but by turbulence and overcorrection. It falls out of the control network without detonating. 17 remain, and the fight shifts from physical interception to confusion inside the radar picture. On multiple Russian screens, the returns flicker and blur. Some echoes resemble seabirds, others fade into the background sea clutter. Operators mark contacts, clear them, then mark them again. No single unified threat picture emerges, because the swarm's signature is too weak, too spread out, and too low. At 4 hours, 59 minutes and 40 seconds, the drones tighten their formation slightly and blend into the motion of nearby commercial vessel traffic moving at 12 to 14 knots. To the radar, the pattern still looks like normal movement on the water. Defenders continue to treat the readings as interference rather than as incoming weapons. 2 minutes remain before the situation changes from uncertain to critical. At 5:01 a.m., a long-range S-400 surveillance radar finally filters the sea clutter into one unstable mass. The system does not see 17 separate drones. It detects a single compressed shadow moving at roughly 160 kilometers per hour. The target is too slow to be a conventional aircraft, too large to ignore. It is flagged as a possible low-altitude intruder, and the response escalates. A $1 million interceptor missile accelerating past Mach 5 fires at a less than $10,000 drone made of plastic and electronics. The missile's guidance system aims for the perceived center of mass, missing the true distribution of the drone swarm. The missile overshoots. Its proximity warhead detonates in empty air, and the pressure wave slams through the low-flying formation. 2 more drones are knocked out of control and fall away. 14 remain. Instead of turning back, at 5:02 a.m., the surviving drones split into 3 independent clusters. The radar image fractures again. Each smaller group presents an even weaker signature, slipping towards the edge of reliable detection. For Russian operators, the threat appears to multiply while becoming harder to track. Short-range defenses now carry the main burden. The roof-mounted Pantsir S1 swings its cannons upward and opens fire, sending almost 70 rounds per second into the darkness. A moving wall of tracers forms above the industrial complex. One drone is destroyed in mid-dive. Another disappears behind a smokestack and drops from the network. 12 continue onward. At 5:03 AM, with several contacts lost and the volume of fire high, some defenders begin to believe the worst may already be over. Radar confidence rises. On their screens, the air picture looks briefly more stable. The drone swarm entered the industrial area unnoticed by defenders, who believed the main attack was over. Their gun system was near its limits, and their improving radar image signaled an impending system pause, not safety, just before the real engagement began. At 5:04 AM, the roof-mounted Pantsir S1 reaches the end of its ammunition belts. After nearly 30 seconds of continuous fire, the barrels glow with residual heat. The automated reload cycle starts. For roughly 11 seconds, the cannons are silent. A small gap in normal circumstances, but an eternity in air defense combat, where closing speeds and reaction times are measured in fractions of a second. At the same moment, another movement begins on the ground. As the main hangar door lifted, revealing a Tu-95 strategic bomber under maintenance, light spilled out onto the apron through fog and smoke. Inside, technicians were frozen. Their once secure space, protected by radar and missiles, had become the target. Russia's electronic warfare quickly deployed a high-power jamming system, flooding the area with broadband interference. This fractured Ukrainian drone video feeds, stuttered position updates, and caused control latency to spike past 700 milliseconds, momentarily suggesting electronic suppression might defeat the attack. The Ukrainian drone network avoided collapse by rapidly switching transmission bands to evade concentrated jamming. A high-altitude relay platform maintained a stable connection, quickly stitching the broken data back together. The control links reformed in seconds, allowing the attack to continue despite the blackout. At 5:05 AM, 9 drones cross the hangar threshold and enter the interior space. The air inside behaves differently. Heat from machinery, dust, and turbulent flows buffet the small aircraft. Stability margins shrink. The Ukrainian pilots behind the controls are forced to make constant micro-adjustments measured in millimeters to keep the drones from slamming into the floor or ceiling. The first strike is aimed not at the bomber itself, but at the infrastructure that can turn a fire into a system-wide failure. The first drone struck industrial oxygen cylinders near a maintenance rig, rupturing them and releasing compressed gas into a volatile environment of sparks and fuel. The resulting thermal surge ignited, enveloping the bomber's wing root, turning the hangar into a sealed furnace. A second drone hit a missile transport rack with Ki-55 training rounds. The blast ignited the solid propellant, creating intense pressure that deformed internal supports. Aluminum components lost strength as temperatures soared, twisting the outer wing. An NK-12 engine ripped off its mount, severing fuel and hydraulic lines, spreading fire across the interior. By 5:06 AM, the hangar is already compromised, but the mission standard is not simple damage. It is an irreversible loss. 6 drones remain outside the hangar mouth. Their batteries have fallen below 62%, and internal temperatures are climbing past safe operating levels. There is no attempt to conserve hardware. The remaining drones are treated as expendable tools, meant to remove every major system that could, in theory, be restored. Drones hit the bomber, first striking the auxiliary power units to sever electrical lines, causing the lights to fail and smoke to rapidly thicken. A second pair targeted the hydraulic control cluster, instantly dropping pressure and eliminating mechanical control for the landing gear, brakes, and wing articulation. The final 2 drones, accelerating over 160 kph, struck the remaining NK-12 engine assemblies. Hitting the mid-casing sections, the concentrated shock permanently locked the engines due to severe internal mechanical ruin. Compressor stages seized, turbine shafts deformed, and tolerances vanished. By 5:08 AM, heat began deforming the roof panels and steel trusses. As temperatures near the ceiling surpassed 430 degrees Fahrenheit, emergency crews were forced out. The drones completed their mission and were gone. Inside, the bomber, once a long-range strike asset, was rendered a static mass with no power, hydraulics, or propulsion, permanently crippled. At 5:10 a.m., emergency teams establish a security perimeter around the burning hangar. Foam trucks begin flooding the apron with chemical retardant. Power to the entire sector is cut as a precaution. It will take more than 2 hours for conditions inside the hangar to cool and stabilize enough for a detailed inspection. During that time, the strategic impact of the strike is already taking shape in the minds of planners on both sides. By 7:40 a.m., the devastating loss was confirmed. Two Tu-95 airframes were total write-offs, with irreparably warped structures, compromised wings, and seized engines. Crucial support equipment, including 120-ton cranes, calibration rigs, and modernization gear, was also destroyed. Analysts estimate the total physical damage at roughly $150 million, with $90 million in destroyed aircraft and systems, and $60 million in ruined infrastructure and tooling. Ukraine's operation, costing an estimated $260K, $310K for drones, a relay, and intelligence, inflicted a disproportionate strategic blow. By crippling a facility responsible for approximately 25% of Russia's long-range bomber refurbishment, Ukraine projects a disruption of 18 months. This delay severely reduces sortie generation, worsens maintenance backlogs, and creates long-term strategic vulnerabilities for Russia. Satellite confirmation and ground reports show the strike succeeded due to precision, timing, and asymmetry, not the absence of defenses. Russia's air defenses, costing over $500 million, including long-range radar, hypersonic interceptor missiles, and powerful electronic warfare, were overcome by simple, low-cost Ukrainian FPV drones. What the attack reveals is not just a damaged hangar or 2 destroyed bombers, but a shift in warfare logic. Traditional defense relies on prediction through scale. More missiles, more radars, more layers. The new offense relies on adaptation through code, software that adjusts faster than doctrine, consumer electronics that evolve more quickly than procurement cycles, and platforms that move more like agile organisms than conventional aircraft. In this environment, the real vulnerability is not only hardware, it is a procedure. Fixed access protocols, unrotated response sequences, and assumptions that yesterday's battlefield will look the same tomorrow all become points of failure. A few $100,000 in expendable systems has delayed billions in long-range strike capability, erased months of modernization effort, and forced an immediate reallocation of national resources toward recovery rather than expansion. The facility will need reconstruction. The defensive concepts that guarded it will need to be redesigned. Today, the smoke over the ruined hangar has thinned, but the consequences of the strike continue to spread. The total destruction, about $150 million in losses, now stands as a clear marker of how quickly layered defenses can be bypassed by small, networked machines guided by timing and code. As militaries around the world study this attack and look towards their own critical sites, a single question grows sharper. If a handful of low-cost drones can breach protection systems built over decades, what must change first to keep the next strategic facility safe? And who will adapt fast enough before the next swarm appears over the horizon? Subscribe to this channel to follow up on this topic.